10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hi Anant, how are you?
Hey, good. This worked finally.
This works? Okay, great. Can you hear me clearly?
I can. I thought the Instagram gods were not letting me come online live with this hair that my wife cut for me. So I thought that that's what was happening. But I'm glad we're on finally.
Awesome. I can hear you loud and clear, and
Good.
super excited to have you on the show. So, guys, before we
Hey,
get
pleasure to be
started,
here. No, yeah.
okay. So before we get started, guys, a quick introduction. As you know, my name is Vibha Kagzi. I am the founder and chief education officer here at reachivy.com. And as you know, at Reachivy, we help students with their study abroad and career journeys, which inspired me to bring Anant Goenka on the show. Just a little background on Anant. Anant, as most of you know, is the executive director of the Indian Express Group. Um, he has been
And
educated
in
at
case you
the
and in case
US.
you forget that through the course of the conversation, I got a standee as well. Yeah.
Okay, terrific. Awesome. I got to learn some branding from you, Anant. This is good for me as well. I get some good tips out of you from this session.
Yeah.
Anant, as a lot of you know, is was nominated Forbes 40 under 40. He's on GQ's list of 50 most influential Indians. He's obviously taken his family business to great heights, and he's going to obviously talk to us a lot more in detail about that. In addition to his beaming accolades, just a little personal introduction to Anant. I've known Anant for many years now, and I just know him to be like a really humble, approachable, accessible, willing, and really warm guy. He's supported me in many ways, and I'm not going to reveal all those ways on the show, but Anant, you know this, like I have a really sweet, like you hold a really sort of sweet warm spot in my heart, and I don't think
How
that's ever
sweet.
going to move because you've just been incredibly supported. And you know, every time I have reached out to you for like the smallest of things, you've never refused me. I will not take undue advantage of that, Anant, but truly, you've really just been an incredible supporter, and I can't thank you enough. And even when I reached out for the show, Anand just, without any questions, he was just like, let's just do it. So Anand, thanks so much, because accolades aside, you're just a really terrific human being, man. And I think that your human side sort of outshines all the personal, professional accomplishments. So just really, you're just a terrific person. Thank you so much.
So sweet of you. Thank you. Thank you so much. No, happy to. And Vibha, I've just, what an incredible career and journey you've had. So it's very difficult to, to not say no to you when you ask for something because it's an incredible. I mean, everybody wants to know you.
Okay, sure, Anand. Coming from you, I will accept that as the truth because that's what the Express stands for.
Yeah.
So, jumping into our first question for today, guys. And as some of you watching the show for a while. Today's episode 21. I always open with the same question, asking about your childhood and your early education years. Take us into a flashback. I'm always a big believer in this whole Freudian theory of like our childhood makes us who we are. So a little bit glimpse into your childhood and early education.
Yeah.
What were you like as a kid?
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I was, I must say, I don't think I had a lot of talents when I was in school or anything. I was quite like just a guy who just liked to eat a lot and have a lot of fun with people. And that's kind of broadly what I remember myself to be. I kept missing records. My father had this random thing. He wanted me to be the world's youngest driver. So he put me on his lap when I was 3 years old. And I learned to drive by the age of 6. And I missed the record of being the world's youngest driver by 1 year to a girl in Calcutta who could drive by the age of 5. And at that time, there was no like automatic transmission. So I was really into cars and motorsport. Um, but a large part of my life was the Express because I just born and raised in my great grandfather's house, who actually the man who started the Indian Express. So just living. In fact, hey, that's a photo of him right there with me. I don't know if you can see it there,
Yeah,
but
possible.
no, so just living here and just being raised, with literally the walls have stories of him, and so that was. I just feel like Express was a big part of me growing up. I mean, it was just all around. I mean, every dinner table conversation, or even if we're not eating dinner, was talking about news and Express and politics and and the business. So I think that was a big part. So I was very clear. I always wanted to do this. It's not one of those stories of anything being forced down anybody's throats. It's just the only kid.
It was sort of organic. Huh? You grew up around it, and then you
It
said,
was
okay.
organic. It was very, very organic, And when I was growing up, I mean, for the first until I was, I think, about 14 or 15 years, the first 15 years, so I live in a building called Express Towers, and the press, until 15, 16 years ago, used to be at the
Was
basement of
housed
this
there.
building.
Yeah.
Yeah, the press was at the basement of this building. So, I mean, every night, right when I was a toddler, there are photos of my granddad taking me to the press and like sort of carrying me to the press in his arms. And I think both mom and dad continued that. And then as I grew up, I just like the natural thing to do before going to bed was to go to the press and then
Okay.
hit and then hit the sack. So it was a big part of my life growing up.
Okay. So sort of very, very organic, very ingrained into you. I know you studied business then undergrad.
Yes.
Why the choice of studying business undergrad, and then you topped it up with the masters later? So what was that
Yeah,
all
I
about?
topped out a master's in journalism. Yeah, and in hindsight, I should have done it the other way around. I probably should have done a bachelor's in journalism and then a master's and an MBA. Maybe, I don't know. In hindsight, I should have done that. Um, I don't have a good answer as to why I did business. I just think it was the thing to do. And to be very honest, I mean, this is a business. At the end of the day, it's a business, and I really felt like I didn't have the kind of business mentorship that I would have liked. So that's why I consciously chose a business. My father, by the way, is a chemical engineer by training. He wasn't supposed to be doing this. Really, his whole mindset is a very engineering mindset. So that's why I chose business. Um, and I was just not a very confident writer. I didn't think I'd ever sort of be able to sort of get a journalism degree and kind of feel comfortable doing it. So I gained that confidence towards the end of my business degree, and then when I finally did apply for masters in journalism. But typically, ideally, now looking back, I probably should have swapped it and done it the other way around.
Done the other way around?
Ideally, I think so because I mean, I was in California when I was studying business and journalism at USC. Annenberg is a very well-known communication and journalism school. Um, and I just feel like it would have been a little bit more fun and interesting and just more, exploratory to be in a communication slash journalism as an undergraduate. Because, I just feel like business, the amount that I've learned now after joining the company just doesn't compare. That it doesn't come. I don't think anybody can really teach business beyond a point. So I
No.
think I loved all my elective classes. I did my emphasis was in brand management, and I really think that's one thing that Americans know is marketing
Sure,
and
of course.
advertising and brand and just selling. I think Americans are
Right.
very very good at that. That's one skill set which I still refer to my to my undergraduate advertising class notes.
Right.
They're that good.
So many years out. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So what happened next? So you got this undergrad degree, you topped it up with a master's in journalism. What happens next? Are you sort of do you come back into the business? Do you go seek some experience outside?
Yeah,
How
no,
did
I
you
did. I did. No, I spent some time looking around. So a big part of the master's degree in journalism at USC, it was a 2-year degree. So I had the choice of doing Columbia, which is a 1-year degree, or USC Annenberg, which is a 2-year degree. And I consciously chose a 2-year degree because
you wanted the
they
full experience?
the full experience, and they really kind of force you to go out and do a lot of work as part of the degree. So we were literally like embedded in the Los Angeles Times newsroom. Constantly, we had like Los Angeles Times reporters. It was like a few streets down from college. So the LA Times was almost like an extension of our of our
Oh
campus. So
wow.
at least they were trying for that to be the case. and it was just an incredible experience, because you just met such incredible people who were, and the whole print industry in America was actually changing by the minute when we were in college, and it was a very different time then, right? Like, I remember I was reporting for our college website. We actually launched instead of a college newspaper, we actually launched a college website. It was called Daily. It was called oh shucks, I can't remember the name. Neontommy.com, and I was sort of covering elections, for Neon Tommy, and I found myself deep into a very sort of black neighborhood when Obama was declared the next president of America, and that whole feeling and covering that moment, in literally a bar that had a viewing party, and Obama being declared the winner. I mean, it was like one of those, one of the most like one sort of changing sort of moment
Right.
in American political history, and you were just there as almost you
You're
were there as a
witnessing it.
journalist. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it was a great time.
Okay, so what happens next? So I know you spent some time with Bloomberg, and like, how did that whole journey
Yeah,
sort of
so
pan
I
out for you?
finished. Yeah, so I finished my degree. I spent about 6 months at Bloomberg in the London office, where I was actually working with the business team. I wasn't doing journalism; I was working with the business team. And then I came back here. I spent a year at a company called Spenta Multimedia. It's one of India's largest magazine publishing houses. And I spent about a year there. Again, I was on the business side, but it was kind of like a 360 job, where I really like learned a lot about actually the printing and the actual physical bits of it. Because that was something that we got no experience, in college, and yeah, and then I joined Express. That was about I think it's been about 8 years now, 8 or 9 years. I've been at
Yeah.
Express now.
Okay, so 8 or 9 years, sort of on in the hot seat, sort of leading the company. Um, Biggest challenges last 3 years, like top three challenges last decade or so.
Wow. Okay. No, there's just so many. I mean, journalism is all a challenge. I mean, I don't know
New
what
fire
isn't a
every day.
challenge. Do I fire every day? No, no.
No,
Look,
I said new fire. Are you burning out a new fire every day?
new fires every day. Yeah, I mean, look, it's pretty much the same fire. I think consistently one thing that is true about journalism and about Express's brand of journalism, which is very sort of fearless, very sort of investigative, courageous kind of journalism, is that every day you kind of wake up, making new enemies, and the bigger the story, the more powerful your enemy is, and that's the I think the fundamentally the largest, the biggest challenge um, of our jobs as independent, as an independent news organization. But I don't think that's a challenge which is new. I don't think it's a challenge. I don't think it's a challenge that's going to go away anytime soon. At least not with the Express, because I think that's a big differentiator, in kind of how in the kind of stuff that we do and the kind of product that we are. Um, you know, fun, Fundamentally, it's very very difficult to report on, say, your largest advertiser, or or to do like, or to have a very objective reporting of of these corporates all over the country. We've broken some of the largest corporate stories,
Sure.
and most news organizations probably don't want to do that, because why sort of
Why
uh,
sort of
you
ruffle
know
the feathers? Yeah.
why ruffle feathers? They are advertisers. They are sort of good for your business. But the whole way Express has always been around, and how we what we're known for since before independence has been, to audit government, to call, to very dispassionately sort of ask questions to people who are in power and ask tough questions, and that's kind of something that we kind of think today the current media ecosystem is a big differentiator for us, and so we believe that the audiences like that about us. But that is the challenge, because I'm as a person, as a person, and me, you see my personality is one where I just really like to, I prefer being like liked, and I don't want people to kind of hate me necessarily, but I
Sure.
think kind of but the job of independent journalism is one where you have to be really comfortable and ready to kind of to ruffle feathers. I mean, that's actually a core requirement of a job like this.
So, we have a question here from Beena who's asking, like, do you feel like freedom of the press is compromised in general, maybe not specifically, in your case, but do you see that happening with this whole conflict between advertising, running it as a profitable enterprise, and then
Yeah.
obviously trying to stay
No.
authentic?
Yeah, I think there is. I think there is a lot of watering down of authenticity. I think I genuinely believe that journalism can't be just business. I think it's that the reason to be for in the news space, much like healthcare, much like education. It's good. You should make money because that true independence comes from that. But it really can't be about the money. If you're in this space because I mean, I don't have an aspiration to own a Gulf Stream. I don't have an aspiration to have a home in, all over the world. That's not what kind of drives, I'd say, people who kind of, that's not what drives me. And that's not what drives true independent journalism. People who own independent journalistic businesses or enterprises all over the world. That's not what excites
That's
them when they
not
wake up in the morning.
okay.
And I think that a lot of what's happened in journalism and news organizations in India is exactly that. They've become organizations, very, very corporatized, and it is about the bottom line. It is about valuations and sort of raising, it's gone down such a hyper corporatized path that I think they've lost a certain sense of authenticity generally. And I think there are a few organizations like ours. There are others as well. Uh, I do think that Hindu is a good example of another paper, another news organization which is like ours that has a certain sense of authenticity and a certain sense of fearlessness. I wouldn't. I think we're better than the Hindu. I
Okay.
prefer the Express's approach to news and journalism. But there are a few of us, but we're increasingly becoming
But
a
you see
smaller and
that happening.
smaller.
Okay, you see that getting polarized towards the whole profiteering, valuation, that whole, like you
I
see it
think
happening.
so. I think there is that tendency right now. Yes.
Okay, great. Uh, let's take a question here from Manoj Gursahani.
Hey,
Anand,
Manoj.
what's your comment on the current obsession? Oh God, yes, on the SSR trial by the media. Is it just being overdone? Where do you stand on this line? I mean, personally, I'm done with this. Figuring out whether he died, committed suicide, whether his girlfriend was involved. Like, I mean, I think there's so many serious issues to deal with today that the obsession of the media with his case, I don't get it. But since you're from the inside, maybe you could explain it a bit better to us.
Look, it's a classic sort of crime story which kind of has all the ingredients to kind of captivate the audience, right? It's a
It's like
classic
a
whodunit with
pot boiler kind
with
of thing.
certain profile of people,
Mm.
and so I think I'm not surprised that it's kind of been going on for so long. From a media perspective, honestly, there is a certain sense of fatigue, with the biggest story of the world, of the decade, of the century, which is COVID, and the impact on the economy and jobs, and uh, you know, border issues with China. These are all things which
Yeah.
are kind of very heavy. So I think, again, going back to that, right? Like media's job, is now a lot of it is defined by kind of making money, getting audiences, that kind of thing, and then so you kind of decide that this story is playing well, it's got a lot of interest, so we'll keep kind of sticking with it. And I think that what's also happening is there's a lot of need to distract people from the bad news and just from weighing them down. So it was something like, I guess I can't say that I know this firsthand, but I think it is not against the government's interest to kind of have the story keep playing because
Sure.
it's a good distraction in a sense, as heartless that kind of sounds. Um, so I think that's kind of why it is playing. And look, people are lapping it up. I mean,
Hmm.
there's
Okay,
there's
so
no question.
people are lapping it up. It makes good business sense, and so I mean, it's sort of like 1 + 1 = 2, and that's why it's working.
I guess,
Manoj,
yeah. I must say though that I wouldn't. I mean, if you're an Express reader, you notice that we have given it a fairly limited amount of space in our pages.
sure.
We of course we're carrying the story. We have a few developers of the story have been Express breaks, but it's just I don't think it's just not great journalism to be publishing any and every random text message screenshot that comes out from Ria's phone, anybody else's phone. That's just, that we haven't begun compartmentalizing news in India like evolved markets have, right? Like you would see what is today primetime news on the largest Indian news channels would typically be something that you would see in UK or in US in Us Weekly or in the Daily Mail, but here it is the national sort of agenda setting primetime news. So we haven't yet segmented sort of good, honest, serious, objective, independent journalism from from a different type of journalism, which is more kind of sensational and which is more gossipy celebrities. Right now, it's kind of all in a sense
It's all
put
pervasive,
together,
right?
and and we as a brand kind of want to fight that
Okay,
that
so which
that
actually leads me.
homogeneous.
I know you do that, and I have a question here from Uf Mirchi, who says, "What all do you guys do to control fake news at the Indian Express, and how do you ensure the news stays authentic?" So,
Yeah.
what sort of barriers, checks, and processes?
That's
What
our
do you have?
Yeah, no, that's our core job. We've got we have two or three. We have, depending on sort of whether it's web or digital, but whether digital or print, but we have several different sets of sort of eyes that kind of go through every story before it gets published, and we're very, very clear. If you want the news first, you're probably not going to get it. Like, Pranab Mukherjee passed away. We are going to be the brand that will maybe break it. Not the first. We're going to check and recheck and check, and we're going to make sure that we get clarity from the family or from a spokesperson, and then we kind of release it as a headline, because we believe that it's really important to get it right rather than get it first. And and we have the luxury of not being a television channel. I feel like if Express was a TV channel, we would kind of be pressurized much more than we are today to kind of to react to inauthentic news. But we get the opportunity now to do that. And look, we also have a lot of history with us, which allows us to, by grace of God, have such incredible reporters and journalists who actually break a lot of news in the newspaper.
Sure.
So we actually, in the biggest political story of the year, for instance, was the letter that the 23 Congress members sent to the Congress family. That was our break. That was our front page exclusive, and you're much better off sort of being first with exclusive content rather than kind of just this very commoditized content. So and so passed away, or so and so fire at XYZ place. You'd much rather kind of own and break stories that nobody else kind of either bothers to invest in getting or kind of is able to get or has the courage to get.
And that's the sort of niche you've tried to build. It seems like a lot of people seriously admire this about you. You're going to read out a few compliments coming away. Ashna Khanna, that's why the Indian Express is considered the most credible. Absolutely, Ashna. Pranuti, kudos, that's the right way to do it. Madhulika, I think your paper is doing the report appropriately, just the main news related to the story. Completely true, agree with you, Madhulika. Raj Hans, all right, guys, thank you for all your comments here. Going to pick up a question here from the happy-go-lucky girl. Okay, what are your views about paid media?
On paid media, yeah, I mean, look, I mean, it's sacrilege, right? I mean, you have to have a very clear sort of distinction between sort of what is for reader interest and what is advertiser interest. And I think what's happening, especially as we digitize, is that there is a lot of content that we kind of realize that has serious appeal to the audience, serious appeal to the journalist, as in like there's an interest in doing the story, and there is an interest from an advertiser perspective to actually be associated with that kind of content. So in the digital world has kind of shown us a way of, with all transparency, full disclosures, no hiding, that this is something which is a collaborated content. Now, I'll give you an example. A couple of things which I think is some of the best journalism that we have put out in a long time has actually come from from collaborated series. So we did the series with that Facebook sponsored on the COVID-19 sort of the warriors and the the inspiring stories of people who've been fighting COVID-19. And in Agartala, I'm forgetting the name of the guy. I'm so sorry for the name of the guy, but there was a 59-year-old thelawala, the guy who kind of literally a daily wage earner who kind of is a sort of cart pusher, and he had saved up 10,000 bucks. Of his life savings was 10,000 rupees. He spent 9,000 of those 10,000 rupees just kind of helping migrant workers who were kind of, either leaving or coming to Agartala. And, we just, and again, that on-ground reporter, saw him, heard his story, and, decided to cover it as part of our series. The Prime Minister mentioned this guy's story on his Mann Ki Baat. The Chief Minister called him, promised him a job, promised his son a job, gave him a relief from the Chief Minister's fund. So, the point is that it was great journalism. It was supported by Facebook, and audiences obviously loved that story. In fact, I had one of my pet projects was something which is very, very close to my heart. Is a series that we do on 26/11 on the Mumbai attacks.
Yes.
We have covered. We're the only news organization to have spent time and effort covering over 100 families or people who have actually been impacted by the Mumbai attacks. People who have lost their own family members, or people who've actually taken a bullet and lived to tell the tale.
And this is something you've been doing continuously. It wasn't a
now
one-time initiative. You do it every year.
Every year on the 26th of November we have an event at the Gateway of India, and Amitabh Bachchan is a big is our brand ambassador. He just loves the stories, and we've invested, but we've invested in finding out 100 families of survivors of the attacks, and what we discovered is that of the 100, almost all, I think 95 of the 100 people we've interviewed, almost all of them talk about coming out of their fear, channelizing their anger, inspiring courage. How do they kind of pick up the pieces of their lives and rebuild? And almost all of them sort of have such inspiring stories to tell. Not one of them comes with any hatred for anyone.
Sure,
Almost all of the people we interviewed speak of the power of forgiveness, the strength in humanity, the strength of oneness, why society needs to be together. So while you get a lot of people like, on TV, you kind of, are kind of foaming in the mouth at every instance. Here we found there are people who have actually, somebody who lost, there was this woman who lost her husband and her daughter, I think, her child, son or daughter, I don't remember. And she gave an interview to us about 4 or 5 years after the event, on the anniversary, and just said, listen, I've forgiven my family's murderers, because I really don't think they knew what they were doing. They were too young to know what they were doing, and I'm not going to live it. And I think, that idea that these stories are just so inspiring. So we just kind of give them a larger platform. That's a properly.
It's almost. I think your platform is almost leading to some level of catharsis for a lot of these victims.
Yes.
Because year after
absolutely.
year, you do the event, you acknowledge their pain, and I think just the
Yes.
sheer acknowledgement that you make it. I mean, I've seen you on that stage. I've seen the empathy and the compassion with which you address the event and the gathering. I think it's almost become a form of catharsis. But what I find very interesting is, in addition to running, you haven't. It's not just you're running this newspaper. You do this 26/11 event. I've attended several of your Express Adda events. So we could just touch a little bit about Adda. What was the philosophy behind it? Why do you guys do it? I know you've been doing it through the lockdown. You had virtual Addas. What's the philosophy? What are you trying to accomplish as a brand, as a platform?
Again, right, because we're not television, I mean, I feel like television wouldn't be able to do Adda because they've got to change the topic in 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes at best. And the idea of Adda is that, we're getting a newsmaker. The next Adda we have is with Jaishankar, the MEA, External Affairs Minister. And, how much of Indian diplomacy right now is sort of in question. And the idea is to get them to kind of have a very patient conversation. I mean, no rush. I don't need to flash a headline out. I don't need a bite that's sensational. I just want a patient, nuanced conversation with somebody who's in the news, and with an audience of people who understand, respect nuance, and want to understand and want to explore a topic in 360, not just kind of confirm my bias. Are you left? Are you right? Are you how I define left? Are you figuring in on how I define right? And then I like you, I don't like you. I mean, it's life isn't that simple. Media is trying to make it that. We kind of want to, we kind of believe that we need to spend time and effort in understanding issues holistically. And so the Adda is basically that. And it's a hugely successful property. We've been doing it for 9 years now. And we've had some of the, some great speakers, very candid speakers coming. And yeah, I mean, you like it.
I love it. I mean, I've attended like, I don't know, maybe 40 addas over the years, and then I love reading the synopsis in the paper. So I think it makes for great reading content as well after the events. So I want to touch a little bit on the fact that you said, you're not a TV channel and you're dealing with short attention spans. So what's going on? We've all read reports about millennials. We had a question earlier from someone called Namkusna Yoga, who's like, as youngsters, we are consuming media in tidbits. So how are you as a media house addressing this new consumption pattern? What are you doing to address it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is to recognize that this trend and what you're saying is absolutely 100% true. So therefore, loyalty to a news brand kind of is always a question, and not to a news brand, to anybody, right? Like the kind of loyalty that, I'll just give an example, that any general entertainment channel had 10, 12 years ago is nothing compared to the kind of loyalty that same channel's OTT platform will have today, right? Because
of course, right.
People just kind of come, they take what they want, and they kind of leave, and that's just the reality of how the world is. And I think we have to adapt to that. I think our digital growth has been accepting, and this is one kind of advice I could probably give people, or if anybody here who's interested in pursuing journalism, or whose family, friends, kids are interested in pursuing journalism, is that's one big change in our industry. Is that we always had a situation where there was an editor, a larger than life, personality who kind of came and said, look, here are the 100 stories that have come to me since this morning. I'm going to select the 30 that matter the most, and here are the top 5 that matter the most of the 30 that you need to know.
Sure.
So I think that power of saying, you need to know this, that we obviously in the digital world, we don't have that same power, right? So we have to be very conscious of the fact that, what does the consumer want? And that doesn't mean that you kind of, fall to the lowest common denominator of content. And that's a mistake I think a lot of news brands made when they adapted digitally. And luckily we kind of resisted that. But, the idea is, but what you are reporting on, you need to be able to sell it, much, much more than you did earlier. Why does this story matter to you? Why should you care about this? How can you tell the story in a 1-minute video instead of a 2,000 word article? So that all of that transition, and I'm not saying we're anywhere near where we should be in that transition, but that to me is the big kind of change in how we do things. And so that's on the one hand that's one part of my answer.
Why is now mattering more than the what, huh?
Yeah, why now? What next? Why should I care? Why should I care is now, I think, the biggest thing. I mean, I can tell you, I can report about a random sort of, Prashant Bhushan has given a fine of 1 rupee today, for his tweets. You'll be surprised the number of people, I'm sure, will be like, okay, why should I care? So then you have to explain why you should care, because what is the precedent that this is setting? What's he going to do if he takes it? What does that mean? If he doesn't take it, what does that mean? What made the Supreme Court kind of, tone down their approach to him? What was their, what did we expect to be the fine? So, all these things you have to now be able to report, rather than just kind of say Prashant Bhushan is given a 1 rupee fine.
So many angles to the story, and you want to sort of go completely.
So on the other hand, I want to tell you that this idea of shrinking attention spans also is not as, I think never before have so many books been read and consumed as they are today. My favorite medium is audio, very old-fashioned linear medium of audio. We are
Audio.
the
Okay, very
most,
interesting.
yeah, the audio medium, right? I mean, now I don't know who sits and listens to newscasts on audio. You would think, but our daily news show, the Three Things podcast, it is the most listened to English podcast program in India, and it's so popular
Wow.
internationally as well. And that's between 14 to 20 minutes long every day, right? Rather 5 days a week. Now, in this world of shrinking attention spans, I've got a critical mass of people who are coming and consuming a linear news show on audio only for 14, 15 minutes every day. I mean, so I think it's a little bit overstated, shrinking attention spans. I think it's just tougher to hold on to somebody's attention because so many people are competing for it, right? I mean, and from a news perspective, it takes me, say, 2 days to write one article,
Sure.
and I'm asking you for 5, 10 minutes of your time to read that. Comparatively, you can watch, a 20-minute TV show, a 20-minute episode that has taken like, 10 days to produce. So I'm kind of competing for your time with, an episode of Suits. I can't think of any other show right now. I mean, so I'm just competing for so many things that it kind of appears to be shrinking attention spans, and it is a shrinking attention span.
It's
But
also a massive supply of other forms of media,
yes,
entertainment,
so
and the rest.
yeah, so I think it's also, in a sense, it's a failure of news to be able to actually hold the attention.
To grip the
So I think
attention, right?
to grip the user attention, and that's the big change that we as journalists have to make. Yeah.
Okay, wow, very interesting. You spoke a little bit about audio. You spoke a little bit about digital. Just want to understand where you see print going. In next 5 years, what do you think the landscape's going to
Yeah.
look like? Just for the industry as a whole, and then of course for the Express. Where
Yeah.
are you sort of personally sort of channeling your business towards?
I tell you, the death of print has been spoken about all over the world, and I must say that there's a lot of it's almost overreported in that the real independent newspaper organizations that have actually invested in sort of in only that one core business, they have actually been able to arrest a decline and find a critical mass, and they've been able to seamlessly move audiences to the digital platform. So it's actually it's a movement of platform rather than just kind of hating on a particular medium and a particular format. In the Indian context, the issue is that we have never paid for the newspaper, as I'm sure you are aware, right? Like if you see how much money you pay for a newspaper, you recover
Correct.
that money in Raddi when
Sure.
you sell at the end of the year with the recycle wala, right? So your because the product has almost been given to you free. There's
Yeah.
there's a very sticky habit, and there is a certain curation of news and a hierarchy of news that 250 years of the user experience that has kind of evolved of the newspaper product. It seems to be in India a very sticky format and a sticky product. Now
Oh,
there are
really? Okay.
there are lots of newspapers, a lot of news organizations that have just mindlessly printed copies and dumped them and I literally paid you to read it. I think that correction is what is necessary and will happen in India as it has happened abroad. But the organizations, the newspapers have actually said, look, pay to consume sort of the paper.
Sure.
I don't think, are as vulnerable, and the world, all over the world, this has shown that they are not as vulnerable, as these guys who kind of just literally like just print and dump, print and dump,
You're
and
saying a
kind of,
subscription-based one. So like the New York Times and the Journal, where I have to pay to get my news.
yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely right. So I think it's very easy for the audiences to kind of seamlessly move to digital is the one thing that I'm saying. But what I was referring to earlier is the fact that I don't think the medium itself in India is as stressed or as pressured as we're talking
As it's being
about,
made out to
as
be.
it's being made out to be.
Okay.
Yes.
So 5 years later, if you just had to do like out of 100 print, digital, and audio, where would you see the mix?
Of audiences.
Yeah, like if out of 100, if you say like 40.
Look, it's already like 90%. Like for us, so I mean, I would say, in 5 years, I would say like 80%, 90% of our audience will be digital.
digital.
And that's the beauty of it. But not having a newspaper as part of that,
That
part of that
mix.
mix, I think is is being short-sighted, because I believe that formats don't die. Like radio is the oldest. Radio is not dying anywhere anytime near, right? Like anytime soon. So formats don't die. It's just business models have to evolve, and I'm sure it will happen in India as well. It's really
Exactly.
about who's going to have an authentic voice, who's going to be true to themselves, who's going to have the credibility of asking a reader for their time and for their time, who will be able to ride out the disruption is my hope, my belief, my my conviction,
Okay,
whatever.
good. And that's very positive news for all of us who are avid readers of your paper, Anand. So we're glad the paper's not going anywhere. It's a coffee feature for me in my household. You know, I wake up
Yeah.
to the Express and I consume my news exclusively through only your channel. So
Oh, that's fabulous.
I'm
Great.
happy to
No,
hear
so
this.
glad to hear. So glad to hear.
Okay, quick
And
question here from Kanika Sharma, who says, with the Supreme Court coming down on Prashant Bhushan the way it has, do you have any hope for freedom of speech expression, especially given that the judiciary should be protecting the freedom of speech and not limiting it? Do you have an opinion on this that you want to share?
no, look, I think generally all over the world you'll see that the stronger the government, the stronger the mandate, the political mandate, uh, the more the almost discouragement of free press, of free speech and free press. And I think that's kind of also what we're seeing happening here. I don't think it's a new trend. I think it's been happening every time. If you've seen it, even in a young democracy like India, historically, the stronger the government, the more they kind of come down on journalism, on people who say things that are sort of
Sure.
maverick. Um, and so certainly, I mean, it's a concern. But I also think that it's up to us to kind of fight for that. It's up to us to kind of fight for, for just for institutions and for people in public life to have thicker skin, and for us to to make allegations and to say things, to voice our disappointments, responsibly but effectively, right? Like we shouldn't be going on a protest because Humpty Dumpty was pushed, right? Like there has
Sure.
to be, you have to be motivated with the right things. I think that's the kind of space that Express thrives on, that independent journalism and brands like Express kind of really thrive on, is that no matter what the pushback, we will ask independent, tough questions. And I think the Supreme Court was, I mean, I won't give my opinion here because I'm a little bit,
Sure, sure.
I have to be careful, but on that particular case. But I think this is something that's happening across the board for all institutions. And I do think
Okay.
that audiences are getting fed up of being, asked to be quiet, and you'll see that
And
coming up soon as well.
and you're clear that as a newspaper, your responsibility is ask the questions, and that's the role you have, and that's the role you're playing.
Absolutely. And, I think audiences respect that. And I think if our digital growth, even in the last 3 months, forget the last 5, 6 years, even the last 3 months, the kind of explosive digital growth we've had, the increasing user loyalty we've had, with the largest time on site spent, is across all news brands, is for the Express. We are now as a group reaching 200 million users across 200 million users a month in 6 languages across the world. It's a it's a it makes it one of the world's largest digital news brands, and it's a huge number of people. So I think there's a COVID has taught us that there is a readers are interested in authentic domain authority content. That there was a point in time where there's one guy sitting in a television studio who was the expert on everything from crime to weather to they were just these hyper generalists who kind of knew everything about everything. I think that's completely changed now. I think the respect for the domain expert, the respect for an authentic, almost fact checked perspective put out is just so much higher than it ever was.
Sure. Okay, great. I'm going to pick up here a quick question from Sahil, who says, Sahil Malhotra, can the rise of vernacular keep the English pie of digital floating? Okay, yeah, let's talk a little bit about vernacular versus English. I think he knows you, Anand, because he says, on a side note, good to hear you after long, Chief. Sahil Malhotra. Okay, so a little bit about vernacular versus English, and where do you see that? Where do you see yourself on that spectrum? and how do you see that evolving?
It's very interesting. I mean, I feel okay. So, firstly, from a pure sort of media perspective, vernacular, the growth of vernacular in print is still an extremely encouraging high number across the country.
Yeah.
We publish we publish the city of Mumbai's largest newspaper is a paper called Lok Satta. It's our Marathi daily,
Right.
and is the largest Marathi news website as well. And so I have so my exposure to that is from Lok Satta's perspective. Um, it is an extremely powerful brand and product. There are people who speak English, who even think in English, but who prefer consuming their news in a Marathi product
Sure.
because that's home, that's closer to
Right.
home, that's more on ground. Um, so I think vernacular's growth in India is incredible. Has got incredible headroom in front of it. Um, there is a certain sense of the sanctity and the honesty of print, which I think all the fake news is largely a digital plus television kind of phenomena. I think
Phenomenal.
the responsibility, the credibility of the print medium in itself, I think, is far higher. So both from advertiser and reader perspective, they recognize that what a print, what a story in a newspaper can do, uh, a presence on television or a presence on digital alone doesn't kind of make up. So,
Okay.
so vernacular has got tremendous headroom. The second interesting thing to think about, in Delhi elections, I was at Kalkaji. Kalkaji is one of the many illegal housing colonies in Delhi, and there was a lot of talk about Atishi's education push. The Delhi elections about 6-8 months ago, and I was kind of just there while she was campaigning, and I went to a school. I went to one of a uniformed 12-year-old, and I asked him. I said, has your school, क्या आपका school में actually कुछ improvement हुआ है, betterment हुआ है? And he had a very fascinating, I thought, a very profound answer. He told me that, हाँ ठीक है, but अभी पढ़ाई लिखने की जरूरत क्या है? गूगल से तो हम रोज फोन में बात कर लेते हैं. So, his idea is that he opens Google search, he searches
Sure.
for whatever he wants on Google just by talking to the phone. And
Sure.
Google
Sure.
answers him, and Google answers his query in
Gives them all
audio.
the answers. Right. Right.
In audio. He doesn't have to
Right.
read it anymore. So this
Right.
idea of, reading, I mean, so I think one of the big trends that will happen over time is that in the local languages, you will have a lot of people who will talk it, but who may not be comfortable reading and writing their local language. Whether it's Malayalam or Tamil, or there'll be a lot of people who just feel like they're at home when they are conversing in their local language, and they have that sort of affection and addiction to it, but they may not be proficient and
Necessarily.
comfortable reading and writing it.
Sure.
And so I think a lot of vernacular growth you'll see will come from brands like Lok Satta kind of having a very significant presence, on the digital platform, which we're all kind of, I think, going towards and investing in. And I think, I think that's a very complementary thing, is having a newspaper again with a multimedia kind of digital presence, and that's kind of the mix that we're all kind of investing towards and moving towards.
Okay, so digital definitely the future, vernacular, of course, taking over. Sahil, I hope that answered your question for you. Just going to read out a few comments towards you. Madhulika says, I've attended almost all the Adda since it first started. Great,
Wow.
Madhulika. Utsa Kohli. Actually, Utsa worked with the Express for many years, actually.
Yeah, of course. Hi, Utsa.
Says, you've done a fantastic job with the paper and in the online space. It's the only physical paper I love and read. Okay, great, Utsa. We match on that front. Nandini says, Anant, thanks for an enlightening conversation. Abel says, really insightful. Thank you, Abel. Rajans makes sense of things, to think of things this way. Thank you. Bharati Ayush, I am a UPSC aspirant and I read IE articles daily. Great. Great, Bharti. It will be great preparation for your UPSC as well, because it will increase your awareness many-fold. All right, let's take this question from Rajiv Podar. As a media baron, wow, I like that. As a media baron, what is your reaction to when people say media doesn't operate with responsibility? Does it anger you, or or you think this is a wrong claim? So do you think the media acts responsibly?
Look, I mean, I think it's tough for me to defend media when I spend most of my day, time, and effort, and the whole team spend most of its time and effort trying to, be the exception to media. So I think there are all different types of media. Most of the media, which is very popular, doesn't have a long shelf life. Like the product life cycle, probably like 5-6 years. That format lasts for 5-6 years. Um, so I think that there's a lot of very, very irresponsible media today in India, especially on television. It is almost shameful to watch. It's not even news. They're competing with entertainment channels, and it's divisive. It is kind of it is pushing out insecurities, fears of everybody. So a lot of it is
Playing the
just
lowest common denominator, sort of.
lowest common denominator, being emotive, not factual, no
Sure.
sense of fact checking, no sense of any kind of real journalism, which we were taught in
Sure.
school was to go and get all sides of the story. Now these are
Yeah.
formats which audiences of course are lapping up, and I will say they're irresponsible, but market realities are audiences like them, and so is media overall irresponsible? I think there is a large contingency of media that is irresponsible. I think there are few of us who are very responsible, are very committed to being true to ourselves and being who we are. And I must say that again, the audiences have really given us a disproportionate share of their time and awareness and interest, just because we are that different and we are in a sense responsible. We do
Sure.
our very, very best to give you all sides of the story. We be objective. And again, since we are on Reach IV's page, and I'm assuming there are some people here who are considering journalism as a career. You got to be very clear when you get into this space that you have to have equal compassion and empathy for your truth and the other person's truth, and you got to find as many different versions of the truth as possible. And if you are not excited about that, if you're just wanting to push your opinion, your side of sort of how you think about a particular news event, I think this is not the right space. I mean, you're going to have a shorter career than authentic journalists would, people who kind of in it for the right reasons. And I really think a big part of how media, especially in America, the way the place it is in now, in terms of both business and in terms of just falling credibility, the kind of polarization that's happened in society in America, especially in America, is because of that.
Sure.
Is
Yeah.
because journalism became so partisan. A lot of liberal media was just too bloody liberal. They just kind of missed out on an entire sort of double-digit percentage of opinions and concerns of an audience, and they found themselves getting literally rolled over by literally one company that managed to just kind of have all the other sort of voices that were completely unrepresented.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. This is very,
So
this
I
is very
think,
helpful. I love what you said about like be compassionate about your truth and the other person's truth and so many other truths, right? I mean,
yeah,
I love the so many other truths because who knows what the truth is unless you go listen to someone else's truth, and your truth might not be my truth. I think
yes,
that's the humility of that sentence just really brings out the flavor of your newspaper. If you are sitting at the helm have this sort of approach to news, then obviously it sort of seeps down in your organization. There are so many truths to a single story. I think that's just it's a beautiful takeaway. I'm not going to forget those words, and that I mean just amazing. As we're nearing the end of this, and the future, how are you seeing the group? Not in the short term, not the next 2-3 years. How are you seeing yourself, build this in over the next decade or so? What's the sort of big picture vision? When you wake up and you sort of, think of since they call you a baron, I'm going to call this your kingdom. Um, where do you see your kingdom? In 10 years, where do you see yourself in the media space? Are you going to go beyond the media space? Like, what are you thinking? What's on your mind?
no, look, I think one of the strengths that we as an organization have, and why we're able to do the kind of journalism that we do, is because we are not in any other business, right? We
Okay.
are I mean, at least on any meaningful way, we are only and only in the business of news. It's a terrible business. It is an awful, awful business. I mean, the kind of effort and energy that goes into making X unit of money in this business compared to anything else I could have been doing is almost a joke. But we're in it for impact. We're in it for actually for being able to to influence dinner table conversations, and that's kind of what drives us. And I think the future is just investing in the ability to tell stories that haven't been told, to find a new perspective to everything, to give to explain the news and break it down. We're coming to, I tell you, in journalism in India, uh, in American journalism, I was a teaching assistant for the history of news media in America class. So I'll take a small diversion and tell you about something. But in America, a large part of the journalism that you're seeing today was shaped by the civil rights movement. In India, the journalism that we see in India today was, on the one hand, shaped by the freedom struggle. So the Indian Express, for instance, was started by my great grandfather on
Sure.
request of Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi wanted an English
Just a heads
newspaper.
up, I have only 2 minutes and Insta's going to cut us off.
Okay.
So,
So I think the future is exactly that we're going to we have to find that reason to be.
okay.
Emergency was a big reason for free press. I think now our reason to be is to fight misinformation. There's so
Okay.
much rubbish that people are consuming. They have no idea. They have no perspective as to why they should think what their opinions really have to be found. So I think just authentic, factual content is really
Okay.
what will, I think, keep us
Finding sort
driving.
of your life purpose, your swadharma, your raison d'etre, whatever it may be. But you're saying as long as you have that, like that will sort of seed and fuel the growth of the paper because that's what it seems
Absolutely.
like it's sort of. Okay, great.
And
Quick
we're
question
going
here
to
from
start
Ruchi.
charging people for content. So you guys
Start
please be
charging
ready to
people for
pay
content.
for
Okay.
authentic content on the digital platform.
A quick question here from Ruchi. Okay, guys, get ready to start paying for some of that authenticity. Last question here from Ruchi Jain. I'm just going to squeeze this in. Do you see any press freedoms being reduced due to COVID? So COVID impact on the
On
business.
Actually, I must say no, I feel contrary. I must say I think that largely this government, I mean, and Modi specifically has been very encouraging of journalism through this crisis, unlike has been reported in foreign press. He's from day one he's been please spread awareness about the importance of social distancing in our culture. What the hell is social distancing in our culture? It doesn't make any sense. The press has a very important role. You've got credibility. You have to invest in that. And you have to convince your readers that this is important, this is critical, this is a black swan moment for all of us. Um, so no, I don't think COVID. I think in fact COVID uh, has been has shown the importance of having authentic media.
Okay, great. Okay, Ruchi, I hope that answered your question. I'm going to have to let Anant go. Anant's last minute comments coming through. Great chat, Anant. 2.5 insightful session. Lovely chat. Wow, thanks for answering so honestly. Very honest answer. Much appreciated. Thank you, Shivani. Thank you, Rajiv. Thank you, Jahangir. Thank you, Shaif Khan. Thank you, Vasu. Um, Thank you, Ashna, Malvika. Thank you all. Thanks, Varsha. Thank you, Mr. Goenka, for an insightful session. Very informative and eye-opening. Okay, guys, thank you for your excellent response, Anand, by Ruchi Jain. All right, guys, going to let Anand go. Anand, you could just hit the end button. Obviously, Anand, deep-felt thank you and most enlightening session and lots of idioms I picked up from you that I'm going to now use in my everyday parlance. So thank you for
Great.
this. Going to let you just exit. Guys, that was episode 21 of House of Experts. We'll look forward to seeing you next week on episode 22. Take care.